See it, say it, believe it, yeah. See it, say it, believe it, yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. We are Tristan and Michael, and you are listening to Fuse, transparent conversations for marriage, family, and relationships. We invite you to join us as we discuss perspectives that are thought about but not talked about. So tell your friends and family to check us out and connect with us on social media. Join the conversation by emailing us at info@fusedmarriages.com. All right, Michael, we have a kind of heavy one today.
Yeah, you're right. It is. I mean, it's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah.
People are dealing with a lot. I mean, I can't imagine what people thought their 2020 would look like, but I can imagine they didn't think it would look like this.
Right. No.
Right. 6 months in.
Yeah.
We're in the month of June,
Right
2020.
now as we're recording. Yeah.
And it's like, man, I didn't imagine in January or December of last year, like, hold on, this is where we at?
Right. You remember New Year, everybody's like, oh, 2020 is my year. 2020,
Right.
Things are going to change. Things
Right.
are going to happen. And
Double portion. That's what they was claiming.
Double portion.
Which to me, I guess it depends perspective of how you look at it. So I'm not saying we cannot receive or get double portion, but man, I don't know if anybody thought it would come this way.
No.
So we got a letter in.
Yeah.
That really kind of impacted this particular show to kind of help us to drive some of the discussion points. But you want to go ahead and jump into the letter and just kind of discuss where we're at?
Let's jump into the letter and we'll talk about what we need to get to.
Yeah.
So the letter today, dear Tristan and Michael, my husband and I are going through some difficult times. We have 3 kids, all under the age of 16. Ever since the schools closed a few months ago, it seems that the focus on our one-on-one time has been lost. We live in a major metro area, and now the protests in the streets can often be heard within blocks from where we live. We are struggling with what to tell our kids about all of this. So now we are fighting 2 fronts. We don't have our one-on-one talks, date nights, or much quality time at all. And we just don't know what to tell our kids about what's going on. Can you help me out? Signed, this was supposed to be my year.
Wow. How many of us said that?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, as we kind of look at what's going on right now in the times, there's a global pandemic.
Right.
There's protests happening. People are still dealing with the things that they were dealing with before. Some marital strife, maybe family problems. People are still getting in car accidents. There's still things that are happening. You know, hospitals are still full of people that maybe don't have corona, that are having heart issues or surgery issues. People are still going to dialysis. So there's all the stuff that was happening before. And I don't know if you heard, like, there's like murder hornets and, there's supposed to be just the news just keeps coming. Right now, there's been a resurge of Ebola in Africa.
Oh, wow.
So, so there's just things that are happening all over the world. So today we're really talking about how do you even have these conversations?
Yeah, I mean, this may be a little different from, some of our previous podcasts, but I still think it deals with family relationships
Absolutely.
and marriages, because all of this that's going on, it affects all of that.
Absolutely.
Right. So we talked about, in this case, the person talked about the woman in this case in the letter, talking about the kids being out of school.
Yeah.
Right. Which I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure if she's still working or not, or still what's going on with that. But still, now, she's probably having to cook more often, tend to their needs, make sure they're still educated.
Oh, yeah.
Right. She doesn't want necessarily her children kind of just to be sitting around.
Right.
So a lot comes with that. Right. And then you have the relationship of the family is just totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think right now, I've been doing like a lot of reading, and they're talking a lot about mental health and how mental health is impacted. And then even post this time, what that looks like. Is there going to be more cases of PTSD? How the marriage is impacted because you're with each other all the time.
Right.
So today's topic, as we're kind of diving right in, is talking about tough times.
Yeah, definitely. Just dealing with tough times is just, I think we have to, as a family unit, definitely as a marriage unit, just understand they will come. And we also talked about this in a previous podcast about being able to adjust to those tough times, right? Because we get in the rhythm, I get in the rhythm, you get in the rhythm of life, and seeing how things go, right? And kind of get to say, okay, this is what my day, what my week gonna look like. When somebody throws a wrinkle in that, a situation throws a wrinkle in that, we got to figure out how can we adjust as a family and still love each other, care about each other. It may not look the same, right, with regards to, okay, my date nights or the time I spent with the kids or the time whatever I was doing at work. But I think we had to come together as a unit, husband and wife, as our kids, and kind of say, okay, you know what? Here's a new plan.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're dealing with this as the time that we're in the studio right now, there is a lot going on in our world. So we just want to kind of get into some possible ways that we can
Yeah, yeah.
converse about this. This is not everything. And you have to kind of apply it to your family. So we're hoping some of the principles that we talk about today can be applied for you. But if you have something you want to share, something that's working for you, please send us an email, info@fusemarriages.com. Check out the website. Let us know your thoughts. Send us a message on any of our social media platforms, because we do want to connect with you. We do want to hear from you. We do want you to be okay. And your family and your children. So this time is putting strain on relationships because there's just so much happening.
So true.
And you were already, we've been in kind of a national lockdown for a while, which has been called kind of social distancing is the term that's being used, where you're intentionally staying away from people. And that means that you're really just kind of hunker down with the people in your household, or maybe like a grandparent that is there as well. But we really want to make sure that during this time you're drawing closer to each other and you're not being pushed farther away, and that your children are protected, and that we're able to do what we need to do so that as we push through challenging times, because this is not going to be the only challenging time right now. This is one we certainly didn't foresee, but there are different kinds of things that happen in the civic community. There are different things that happen in economic times, and there are ups and there are downs. There's different things that happen within the family when you might be dealing with death, or there might be loss of job, and how do we adjust to these? And those are potentially a little bit are smaller in degree to possibly what's happening now, but these conversations are still things that are going to be ongoing. So let's get into what our first point is.
You mind if I say something real quick, just because I want to piggyback on what you
Yeah.
said. So like, we're in the middle of going through this too,
Yeah,
right? Of
absolutely.
trying to figure out and trying to balance and this, that, and the other. So hopefully, like, some of the things that we're saying that we're talking about, we're actually living it, trying to adjust, trying to figure out. We're not above anything that's going on. Trust and believe the discussion in our household about
Right.
how we gonna handle these kids that we have
Right.
that are 2 years old and 4 years old. 4 years old. And like, okay, we trying to educate. We got a lot of things going on, even our one-on-one, to all the stuff we're going to talk about. We're actually dealing with it. So hopefully you can get something out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, babe.
So, our first thing that we want to kind of discuss is gauging maturity and openness. So, as we're jumping into these are just some things to kind of put on your mind, put on your heart. As like Michael just said, we've been discussing them. So the first kind of step in having some of these dialogues is gauging the maturity and the openness. Now, I want to talk about this from maybe to kids, and maybe you have something there, but I also want to hear from spouse to spouse. So I'm going to jump into the kids piece. So when you're talking to your kids about challenging times right now, there's civil unrest. There has been for a long time, but it's really been bubbling up to the surface. There's obviously kids are missing graduations. They're missing school dances and parties and just, companionship with their friends. So the first part is gauging maturity. If you're gauging the maturity of your child, so you might have, a 17-year-old that's graduating, or 16 or 18-year-old that was graduating, that was looking forward to some things. As you're having the conversations about what's happening in our world, gauging how much they can take. So you might not be able to go all the way in on some of the things that you might be able to talk to your spouse about, but there are some really important conversations that you need to have with your child. And then how is that different than when you have the conversation with maybe an 8-year-old or a 13-year-old, and making sure that we're both protecting them, but we're also really making sure that what I'm offering them, they can take, they can chew, we're not trying to scare our kids.
Right.
We're trying to educate our kids. What do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right about gauging the maturity of your kid, right? 'Cause depending on what age your kid is, you know what, if your kid is like, our young kids' ages, maybe like, hey, you can't go to the park. They asking why?
Yeah.
Well, because, you know what I mean?
Right,
like, how do you have that conversation with a 4-year-old and say, you know what, why you can't go play on that swing right there
Yeah.
in the middle of a pandemic? I can't say pandemic to no 4-year-old.
Right.
They don't know. They're like, okay, is that, pizza pan? What we talking about? Right. So, but versus what you're saying, what you just mentioned about an older kid, right? Maybe say, you have a young kid that's, used to playing basketball this time of year. They're getting ready for spring football, whatever have you. No, you can't. No, I'm sorry. You know what? You can't go to the practice. You can't be around your teammates. And really understand and say, hey, you got to frame that discussion up. Say, hey, we got to do something different. Yeah. And I think you have to comfort them and say it's gonna change at some point. Yeah. But right now, this is what we're doing as a family. Yeah. To make sure that everybody stays safe.
You still have to offer some hope, and then also on that same thing, how open are they to having the conversation? Because trauma and challenges affect different people differently, adults and kids. So you might notice in some of your kids, okay, they're shut down. They're not really talking anymore. They're angry, or they're frustrated. They're tired of looking at, us or whatever. And it might be the same as we kind of talk about spouse. Okay, they're ready to move around. They're ready to kind of get out there and be around people. So gauging where are they in terms of how much they can take, and where are they in terms of how much they're willing to converse about this. How open are they to a conversation? Because you look at some 13-year-olds or 14-year-olds. Like you all know, we're a blended family. So our 13-year-old, she was involved in some different things, and now it's like, okay, I'm seeing my friends on
very different.
On video. Or I know a lot of people are having like drive-by birthdays. Where you kind of drive by. We've done some where you get in your car and you drive by and you wave and you honk your horn and you have balloons and signs, and it's cool, comparatively to nothing. But for the 4-year-old or the 5-year-old, you have to do something. You have to kind of make it create. Okay, how can we do this and have a good time in our house? And especially when we're in our house all day, every day. How do we set this day apart? So I think that's something. And then in the letter, one of the things she talked about is kind of having one-on-one time. Talk a little bit about what that might look like in terms of openness.
Yeah, I think because of we kind of touched on it a little bit before, but like there's so much going on with now new roles are being basically assigned to each parent, each kid. Everybody has something different that they're doing now that they weren't doing 6 months ago. Right. Some extra stuff and different things that are taking place. Yeah. And I think we have to talk about that. Okay, you know what? I was now, only just cooking and spending time with the kids, 3 times a week, because, they're working in school, they had basketball or football. Now it's like, okay, this is 5 days a week. Yeah. I got to do hair 5 days a week for my, for my 6-year-old little girl. Man, there's a lot. I can't take him to the beautician now. I can't take Junior to go get his hair trimmed. He's trying to figure out, he want to do twists now. He want to color his hair.
He's at home.
Right.
Like,
he's at home. He ordered off of Amazon. Whatever is happening, Some things are happening like that are different. Yeah. And I think we got to talk about that and say, okay, now how does that affect us as a unit, one-on-one? Yeah. Because it happened so fast. It wasn't like, no, okay, it's coming. Now we can prepare. You know what? Next week, let's shut down. Yeah. School shut down. We're not going to work anymore. Now y'all gonna do something different as a household unit, as a family. Y'all go figure it out. I
think you actually just brought up something really interesting, because not everybody is at home. There are essential workers, and people are starting to kind of go back to work. Right. I see all the time when on the news and so forth. Like if I have to go to the grocery store, I'm covered. I don't know what everybody believes, but I can't risk it.
I just see your eyes. That's all I see when you leave.
That's all there is to see is my eyes.
Is that you in there?
Yeah, it's me. That's because I'm probably one of those people they take pictures of, like put on Facebook, social media and all of that. But because I just can't risk it. But there are people, like when I go to the grocer, there's somebody checking me out that has to be there to pay their bills. There are truck drivers that are going cross country, still delivering goods. There are the things that we are ordering. There's still, all the ground transportation, if it's USPS or, FedEx or, any of the others, really. UPS. So anybody, these are people that are still having to go to work. Yep. So you just brought that up. That's a whole nother dynamic. You might have one partner at the house that has to stay there and one partner that's gone. Now this partner is dealing with all 3 kids, and maybe they're working and somebody else. So these, or both of them still have to go, and you're trying to figure out, okay, is the daycare safe? Can somebody watch my older kids? Is my 14-year-old responsible enough to watch my 7-year-old? Because we are both have to go to go to work. So you're having to have some of these conversations that are really, really tough, that the Times brought up. And tough times, they can strengthen you. Like you go to a gym and you're lifting heavier and you're getting stronger, or they can break you. It can be too much. It can be, I can't take this. So really be watching your kids. And I know for even for me, I speak from personal experience, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on when it's like, hold on, my life didn't stop. It just became more. I had more stuff I had to do. I had more things that I had to manage and still keep going. Like Michael said, okay, I was, okay, they're at school or we're at work. So the middle of the day, I don't have to worry about it. Now I have to worry about lunches and, homeschooling and entertaining and engaging, making sure they're okay. Because the little kids, they're like, I want to see my friends. I want to go over here. I want to play. And then the older kids, hey, what's going on? How do you feel about it? It's okay. The first week it might have been cool. It might have been like, oh man, I don't have to go to school. Then the second and the third and the fourth, those kinds of things, that's challenging. So we just want to be gauging our partners, our spouse, engaging our kids. Hey, how are you doing? Let's talk, and being very intentional. Like the writer said, I'm not getting one-on-one time. I think that's something that's really major, not just with your spouse, but just checking in on your kids maybe before they go to bed. Man, it's been a long day, huh? How are you feeling about everything? It's okay. Get them to talk. Yeah. And I think that's the maturity piece that we're talking about is, okay, how much can they handle? How much are they willing to talk? Asking some intentional questions. So I want to move from that to our second point for today is facts then feelings. And that is talking about the source of information. So we're talking about facts. What is happening? And I think it's important, particularly in this day and age, to make sure that we're sourcing our information from reputable places. And even if you're pulling from a number of news sites or newspaper sites, not just saying, oh, I saw it on social media, which is really happening. I mean, and that's not a bad thing. Like we are definitely sharing what we're learning through social opportunities, but making sure like, okay, let me do some research on this so that we're talking about what is and not maybe opinion, and then seeing, okay, how do you feel about this? Hey, this is what is happening. This did happen. Right. What do you think about that? And run that through your value system, but really having those conversations about the facts, and then how do you feel about those facts?
No, I think what you said about, we talk about the facts of what's happening. I think things are happening so fast. Yeah. And there's so much information. Like literally the world is trying to figure out what the facts are. Yeah, that's even true. From our leadership on down is really trying to figure out what are the facts, what is it, what people can do. Mm-hmm. Can they go to the grocery store and be safe? Can they go to work and be safe? Can they go to churches and be safe? Whatever it's like the world is trying to figure it out too. Yeah. So that's actually applicable to families as well. The family's gonna have to be here. We got to try to figure out what really is and what really is not. Yeah. And it's a lot of information coming on from different sources, like you said, social media, news sites. And trust and believe, they don't have all the answers either. No, they're researching like we're researching. Exactly. So I think it's up to us as families, as couples, in trying to figure out, say, okay, how does our family want to respond to this situation? And I think even in that, being flexible in conversation, revisiting like, hey, this came out today. Mm-hmm. This is new information. Now, how do you feel? Or this thing happened. Now, how do we feel about this? And I think it's really important. This is when unity is just critical. And it doesn't mean that you and your spouse have to have the same opinion, but I know we've talked about it before, kind of having a united front in front of the kids. Right. So, okay, what do we agree on? If you don't agree on the whole thing, that's not to say that you don't, but okay, how do we see this? Okay, I'm going to be more radical and fire, and you're going to be a little bit more, like calm. How do we talk to our kids through this? Right. The pandemic, the civil unrest, family dysfunction, or other issues. How do we have these conversations that when you do talk to your kids, hey, mom and such, they're going to go have a conversation for a while. Right. And then you're talking to your kid,
Dad and I were talking, or and we just wanted to kind of whatever it is, but making sure that you and your spouse are really having some challenging conversations, because these are challenging times, not just, oh, I watched the news and this is what they said on the news. Like, no,
Right.
let me check in time. Like, how do you feel about what's going on? What do you see? What are you experiencing? And particularly when it comes to, and we're focusing a lot on both the civil unrest and the pandemic that are happening right now, but both of those are just so huge that you can't ignore them. And it can't be something that you passively approach, where it's just like, yeah, I saw it. I saw the news. But okay, husband, there's a lot happening.
Mm-hmm.
These are my concerns. These are my fears. This is what I'm dealing with. What are you dealing with?
Yeah.
Well, I feel this way. I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling hurt. And for my wives out there, those are, and we talked about this maybe last show or the show before, but getting men to get past this, I need to protect, I need to kind of have this kind of stoic, position, and getting them to say like, no, I get it. You're the protector, you're the head, but how is this affecting you? They're gonna be like, man, get them to go deeper. And that might be multiple conversations. That might be like, I hear you conversations. It might be just giving them an opportunity. Are you okay? What do you think? And letting them kind of talk about it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. It's like, having to get a man to talk about his feelings, that's a tough one. Cause like we talked about before, isn't it? And I say in previous episodes that you mentioned about, like, we don't necessarily talk about our feelings. And with this going on and this much uncertainty, we have some feelings. We afraid too, because we don't know. We want nothing to happen to y'all. We want nothing to happen to our parents, to our kids. You know what I mean? So we can't necessarily just bottle that in. We have to figure out how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think, that's where that trust factor comes in, where, okay, you're going to find out how much your man trusts you. Because it's so much going on. He has to have some feeling. Job uncertainty.
Yeah.
The pandemic, the protests that are going on, that he may be trying to, like, okay, what does this mean? This is a lot. It's a spotlight being put on as a man. I need to make sure my family's good. I got to make sure I'm good. What does that mean? And like, he may not be able to process it all. He probably gonna have to say, I know, at least I have to say, like, man, I don't have all the answers, and I'm afraid in some cases. But I think we can get through it. Like, it gonna have to be some kind of like feelings and understanding to that level, because as a wife, y'all have a lot to take on, because y'all, I think y'all are the backbone of the family. But that man is gonna have to say, okay, you know what, wife, I love you, and I'm afraid, and I don't really know how to even say the words of really what's all taking place. And that's gonna be tough for most guys. And I don't want wives to get frustrated about that, but that's a tough thing. And I hope that y'all have the patience, or continue to have the patience, to really walk your husband, your boyfriend, it could be your daddy, your brother, whoever it is, that the man in your life, to kind of say, hey, talk to me, what's going on with you?
Yeah, that's just so critical that we're able to have some of those challenging conversations.
Yeah.
And then even in that, being, as you were saying, just being patient, because this might be kind of what's propagating a lot of conversation hereafter.
Right.
So this might be one of those, like, okay, like you said, how much do they trust you? But also, how well are we communicating? How well are we connecting? This might be something that catapults your relationship to the next level, where it's like, man, during the hardest times, we had each other's back. Or it could be, like I said in the top of the show, one of those breaking points. Like, I can't deal. I can't deal with
too
you.
much.
Yeah. So making sure you're offering each other this kind of platform to talk, and you're also offering them the platform to have some time to have their own space. Like, hey, you might need an hour. You might need to go on a run or a walk around your neighborhood, or just sit in the car and listen to music, or, take a long shower, or just be alone for a minute, just kind of gather your thoughts, gather yourself.
Right.
Because in this time, there's so little alone time, and there's so much to think about.
Right.
So just making sure that you're offering that to your spouse. Hey, I've got the kids for the next hour and a half, and then it's your turn. Okay, then you have the kids. Or if you don't have children, hey, I'm gonna go sit for a minute. I'm gonna go journal for a while. Just offering yourself some outlets so that you are able to have substantial and meaningful conversation.
Right.
So the last thing I want to jump into, and I have a question for you here, is it's personal responsibility. What do we have to do? This is the action item, as you know, we say in business. What's the action item? What are we taking away from this conversation? So you've identified the maturity of the person that you're talking to, if it's a child or a spouse or what have you. So you've identified, okay, this is how much they can take. How open are they to the conversation? Okay, so they're receptive, or right now they're just not willing to go past this point. You've talked about the facts. This is what's happening. This is how I feel about them. And then you're getting into actions. What do we need to do? Do we need to get involved? Do we need to hunker down? Maybe one person is the only person that goes to the grocery store, or maybe, we do this thing once a week. We have game night on Friday nights, just so that we can, hey, we're just going to have some fun during this time. Or maybe we have family meetings once a week where we just kind of get together and have our conversations about, hey, what is each person feeling? Where the 16-year-old might be a little more open to having, sharing the feelings, where the 3-year-old is like, oh, I'm having fun, or whatever. So what are the action items? This is that personal responsibility. What do we walk away from this conversation with? So I'd like to throw that to you. Where do we go? So we've had these conversations. What's next?
Right. I hate to simplify it, but it's like almost we're forced to talk about it. Mm-hmm. I know that's our tagline. We always say, you know what, we have to talk about it. This pandemic that's going on, you know what, it's something so unusual, something that just threw us out in left field. It's like I say, okay, now how is this affecting you as a person, as a spouse, as a kid? We have all these connections. We have some people, you know what, they ain't seen their parents in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people haven't seen their Aunt Susie.
Right.
They haven't seen these kids haven't seen their friends. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're doing Zoom and FaceTime. That is like, it's totally different feelings that they don't have that connectivity anymore. And now it's like, okay, we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that's from the pandemic side, and then what's going on with, the protests and what's, with this world and some of these riots and loot and all this other kind of crazy stuff that may be taking place. And people are like, man, what's going on with society? Mm-hmm. Our kids got to be having thoughts, because we have thoughts about it.
Sure do.
So they got social media. They're looking and trying to follow and seeing what's going on,
right,
as well. So, but like, we got to talk to them about it as well, and talk to each other, right? You know what I mean? You may have a different feeling what I have about what's going on with the protests, or why it's taking place. But it's affecting every family. I don't care if you white, black, yellow, green, blue. It's affecting every family to have some kind of discussion about, hey, why are they doing that? Is that right? What's going on? I mean, what's the uproar about? Some people may not get it. Some people may get it. But in either case, it should cause a conversation. You know what? If I have young boys, I should have a conversation with them. Right. If I have any just young kids in general, okay, how do they treat each other? Right. Am I helping the situation by, by not saying anything? Oh, okay, it's no big deal. Or am I actually, talking to my kids, say, hey, make sure you treat somebody with respect, right? Yes. With love, with kindness. Everybody can do that. Right. And we can kind of build that in a family unit. Hopefully that actually goes out to the community.
Yeah. I think you said 2 really key things that I want to point out. And the last thing you said is the family is the foundation for the community, because how we operate in our families, it's this house and this house and this house, this home, this home, this home. This is what makes up our community. So if we don't, and that's why we have the show. If we don't get our houses right, we're not going to have the community right. We're not going to have the society right. So we have to get our homes right. Now, the second thing that you said that feeds into this is having these tough conversations. We cannot let our kids just kind of figure it out on their own. We can't let our partner just deal with it on their own. This is not the time to be like, you know what, I'm a private person. You can't do that during this time. These are conversations that have to be had. Whatever your position is, you have to talk about it. And I really want to stress that for particularly teenagers that are on social media a lot. They're reading stuff. They're seeing the same stuff that you and I are seeing. They're developing their opinions. And we don't want them to be like, oh, well, this is what I think, with no grounding, they haven't done the research. They don't know the facts. They don't even know what mom and dad's position is and why you think that way. So we don't want them to be influenced without having an opportunity to converse. And check out our website for more content and resources, fusemarriages.com. Let's talk about it.
You're listening to Fused with Tristan and Michael.